one less Starbucks coffee a week. Boom.
Oh, you jerk. Don't make people do that.
Bienvenidos a The Fish Nerd. Bienvenidos a los Fish Nerds. Es una celebración de pescados. Pescar y comer pescado. Eso es lo que siempre interesa. Siempre será divertido y lo más importante es todo es verdad. Yo soy Juan Carlos Giraldo de Podcast and Business y estoy aquí con todos los nerds.
I'm Clay.
And I'm Fish Guy Josh, and I collect fish like baseball cards.
Interesting way. Do they come with bubblegum?
No bubblegum.
That's too bad. Because do you really collect baseball cards?
I used to when I was younger.
Yeah, I always did Garbage Pail Kids.
I did do Garbage Pail briefly, but growing up in the Bible Belt of the South, they weren't really looked upon by some of my parental figures.
Yeah, and I'm a lot older than you are too, probably. So I was more in the mid '80s when I was into them. So
yeah, I guess I was just a little too. I was still under the thumb of my parents, so that I couldn't just freely collect them.
Yeah, that's how it always goes. But I want to start off today because today's theme, the name of tonight's show is "Fish Are Nature's Vegetables." Did you know fish are considered vegetables in some circles?
I mean, I don't know how accurate it is, but yes.
And I've heard this my whole adult life. I have a lot of friends who are vegetarians, and you ask them, so you're vegetarian? And by the way, I agree with every vegetarian who says that's the healthiest way to eat. They are probably correct. But then they always say, or a lot of them say, I'm a vegetarian, but I eat fish, or I eat chicken, or I eat some kind of other meat product, and they don't consider that kind of meat. Now, so the question we're going to answer tonight is fish meat, or is fish a vegetable? And the reason I brought this up is because someone shared an article with me that said decreased cancer risk of vegetarians who eat fish. And I think that title should be decreased vegetarian numbers in vegetarians who eat fish.
Yeah, I totally agree with that sort of. You constantly run into, what is it called? Is it pescatarian? Is that a vegetarian that eats fish?
That's the going term. And before I get to your answer, we actually put this out to the Fish Nerd Nation. And I asked the question, and I asked people to call into the Fish Nerds hotline to tell us what they thought about fish as a vegetable. So I'm going to play for you a couple of bits of phone calls we got from, actually they're from a lot of Fish Nerds correspondents, believe it or not.
Awesome.
Yeah, we kind of cheated I told them all to call in. If we're being completely honest. The first call here is from Doc Martin, our fisheries true pescatarian friend here.
Hey, Clay. So this is Doc Martin calling, and the question of the day appears to be, are fish vegetables? Which is a very important question.
Very important.
But first, I thought, what is a vegetable? Because a lot of people think, tomatoes are the fruits and vegetables, and I think most people know by now that a tomato is technically a fruit because of how it grows and where the flesh and...
I should probably stop for a second and tell you that Doc Martin is probably smarter than both of us combined. just as we get going here. So she's already way overthinking this whole thing. Well, let's hear her out.
These are located and how those came about from the plant part. So, the article that she posted was well written and informative, which I really appreciate. They didn't tend to do anything outrageous or anything like that, but from a scientist's perspective, I thought we would have a little game. Is it a fruit or a vegetable? So, this is fun for me also to look up. First, we can talk about, well, what is a fruit the actual botanical definition. It'd be interesting to get Hugo's perspective on this because
You know, it's really fun too because I've known I've known Doc Martin a few years, even before she was a college professor. But she's sounding more and more professory as she gets cooking along here.
a botanical fruit or vegetable doesn't always necessarily agree with the culinary use of a fruit or vegetable. Hence, the tomato. It's a great example. So, botanically speaking, a fruit is a seed-bearing structure that develops from the ovary of a flowering plant. Okay? Whereas vegetables, botanically speaking, are all other plant parts, like roots, leaves, and stems. Okay, that's all fine and good. So, we already established that tomato, while culinarily used as a vegetable, botanically is a fruit. What about an eggplant? Also a fruit.
I knew that one.
How about beans or peas?
Fruit? No.
Also a fruit.
Yes, fruit. Good.
Corn?
Fruit.
Also a fruit.
Yeah.
You're nailing
What
it,
about
Clay.
celery? Celery's a stem, so that is actually a true vegetable.
Oh, I wasn't sure.
Broccoli,
Flower.
another true vegetable. It is October, which means it's fall. So, what about pumpkins?
Fruit.
Fruit.
Those are a fruit.
Yes.
What about nuts?
She said nuts.
Like acorns and sunflower seeds and things like that.
Must be fruit.
Well, it turns out that it depends. So, a seed or a nut is going to be different things based on what the actual outer cover.
Oh, we ran out of Doc Martin. She used up all.
And
the
we
time.
still never.
We may
we
never
still
know.
never heard of the answer of whether or not fish were vegetables.
We will never hear the end of that. I didn't pre-listen to this. This was a simple question, so we know where Doc Martin was going. She was dodging this question. You know, just we might as well have asked Donald Trump.
That was awesome.
That was kind of awesome. So we don't know what Doc.
Ran out of tape.
Yeah, we ran out of tape. Simple question, and we got Doc Martin. By the way, next week she's co-hosting the show.
That's awesome. I was just gonna say I really miss. I haven't heard a good. The Doctor is in for a while. I missed hearing the Good Doctor on the Fish Nerd airwaves.
Well, next week we'll get a full hour of her. So we've just set that up. So then we got a phone call from Captain Sean Tibbetts, and Captain Sean is the shark captain from MaineTunaFishing.com, and probably the grumpiest guy I know.
Hello, Fish Nerds Nation. Captain Sean Tibbetts here. My diet consists of Twizzlers, more Twizzlers, and more Twizzlers and the occasional Chef Boyardee during the fishing season. But in the winter, we tend to kill our own meat, primarily through hunting, and we eat a lot of fish that are organic from the Gulf of Maine, stuff that we catch over the summer. And I'm a firm believer in organic, free range. It makes a whole lot healthier than anything raised in a farm, and keeps us a lot healthier than we would be if we were buying stuff at the grocery store. Well, you know I suck at fish. You're welcome.
All right. So he also didn't answer the question. So,
2 for 2.
2 for 2. And let's see. We got one more, I think, here. Yeah, we got Rich Collins. Rich Collins is our newest correspondent. He's actually our fly fishing correspondent.
Yeah.
He has not submitted any pieces yet, but it's coming. He's actually kind of local to me here. He vacations in my neighborhood. It's neat to live where people vacation, and he will be teaching me to fly fish over the course of the next year. Probably start with tying flies this winter, and then in the summer, actually catching fish on a fly. So
Can't wait.
I can't wait either. And he, by the way, he went to guide school with me, but never took the guide test. He just went to guide school. So here's his take on it. By the way, so far we do not have an answer to this question.
Not a one.
Yeah, at least not from the experts, which are supposed to be the Fish Nerds correspondents. Completely useless people.
Hey, Fish Nerds, this is Rich Collins. I gave this a lot of thought, and I do not believe that fish are vegetables. For the following
Yay!
reasons. They do not bite. They do not spray you with their own milk. They do not have eggs. And they do not kill other vegetables for food. So I think that pretty much sums it up. Fish are not vegetables.
Okay. So leave it to Rich to tell us the truth about fish and vegetables. And, I thought for sure Doc Martin would have rated it for us.
What I really want to know about Doc's call, you'll have to ask her next week, is when she left the message, did it beep or did she keep talking and not realize that it stopped recording?
I like to think she just went on and on and on. But I will pose this question back to her next week. So, now, Josh, you're kind of a fish expert.
A little bit. I am.
What is your background?
My background is in aquaculture and fisheries biology, or fisheries research. So I focus on a lot of fish in captivity, but also I do quite a bit of field work, especially with my current job.
Okay, so we could consider you as someone who knows more than the average person about fish.
I like to think so, yeah.
Certainly know more than I do. I would give you that. So, and I know a lot about vegetables. I do grow vegetables in my garden.
I eat vegetables.
You eat. Now, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Doc Martin and the rest of the Fish Nerds correspondence crew there. Are fish vegetables?
No, they are not vegetables.
Finally, that's if everyone had called and just said no, we would have credibility. But the fact that our own correspondents can't answer the question quickly, that's really good. Now, just to get back to this article, and it's actually not a terrible article. And it says this is by Dr. Mercola, and this is on the website mercola.com, of course.
Take control of your health since 1997.
There it is. It's colorectal cancer. Is the third most diagnosed cancer and the third leading cause of cancer-related deaths. I had a friend, a 43-year-old friend, who died just a few months ago from colon cancer. My neighbor.
I had an uncle that passed away not too long ago.
Yeah, it's terrible. And it's,
similar symptoms.
Yeah, and they get diagnosed at stage 4 sometimes. It's
exactly. That's exactly what happened to my uncle. Stage 4 by the time it's diagnosed.
Yeah, this woman, and it's because they get diagnosed too late. This woman was a runner and peak of health, and just all of a sudden sick. It's terrible. So, but anyway, so she's talking about the role your diet can play in your risk of this disease. And she says processed meats being among the worst offenders and vegetables being among the most protective. So it's not surprising that a new study published in the JAMA Internal Medicine found vegetarians had 22% lower risk for colorectal cancers, 19% lower risk for colon cancer, and 29% lower risk for rectal cancer compared to non-vegetarians. But then... the whole article is kind of in that same zone. My only problem with the whole article is calling fish a vegetable. So-called, she clarifies this, so-called pesco-vegetarians who ate fish at least once a month and other meats less than once a month enjoyed the greatest cancer protection, a 42% reduction compared to non-vegetarians. So it sounds like true vegetarians aren't in the best class to be in, but they're way better than me. Or you. But the pesco veggies are probably the best place to be. So a little bit of fish protein.
I assume, yeah, exactly. They're getting a few extra things that their body relies on with that little bit of meat.
Well, it's actually the omega-3s, right? Previous research has shown the omega-3s to be protective against numerous types of cancer. For instance, in one study, the spread of cancer cells was blocked by omega-3 fats, suggesting that a diet rich in omega-3 fats could potentially inhibit cancer in men with early-stage prostate cancer. So I think it's not just the protein, but then if you read further, most people benefit from some amount of animal protein. So I guess it's a combination of omega-3s, plus the proteins, a little bit of fat, and you're good to go. I'll link up this on the website. I'm not going to read the whole thing to everybody. It gets less funny really quick once you start talking about cancer. So
it's amazing how that happens.
It just really bums you out. And, I'm going to use that as a transition. Speaking of bumming me out, it's October. It's National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And this month we've been raising money for the National Breast Cancer Foundation. We did this starting the very first episode this month. And you were on with me, Josh.
Correct.
On this. And I interviewed Captain Sean and Lindsay Withers from MaineTunaFishing.com on top of a mountain. And I played a part of that interview on that first episode of the month. This being almost the last episode of the month, or maybe the last one this month, I'm going to end this with the second half of my interview with Lindsay Withers and encourage you to go to fishnerds.com and click through to the National Breast Cancer Foundation and make a donation and help us reach our goal of $1,000. We're only at about $500 right now.
And I would add to that I mean, even if it's something where maybe you've given to cancer through another means. I know in October there's a lot of cancer drives going on. At the very least, some of the prizes that you have set up are just awesome. I mean, why not put forth a few bucks to the Fish Nerds and try your luck at maybe one of these fabulous prizes? I mean, I know I did.
It's a great thing, and I'm going to keep them all myself, I think. But we have first we're giving away pink Fish Nerds hats. We're giving away Dexter knives. We're giving away the Angler's pint glasses. Have you seen these?
Oh yeah.
So my friends Rhett and Karen Talbot have an art gallery in Maine. Rhett's a science writer, writes for Nat Geo and all kinds of other places. And incidentally, his best friend is Richard Ross, the cephalopod expert. We'll get him on soon. And he's out your way, Rich Ross. And
okay.
And anyway, so they're giving away a set of 4 Angler's pint glasses. These are the hottest thing this year. Back of Orvis magazine right now, the back cover is featuring these glasses. They're now in Orvis, and they're friends of mine, and they've donated to the cause. We're giving away 2 guided fishing trips. One with a really great guide out of the Highlands of Maine, Richard Duvant from Twin Maple Outdoors. That's a river guiding trip for smallmouth bass. One of the best guides I've ever seen. And the other one is probably with the worst guide on the planet, me. Worse because I've never actually guided anybody. I have my guide license, but I don't know how to do it yet. So this year I'm giving away a lot of free trips to practice. So you could come on a trip with me if you win it. Plus other prizes. We have knives and fishing line and pink fishing swag and all kinds of cool stuff. Over $1,000 of prizes. Go to fishnerds.com, click through on the pink stuff until you get to the National Breast Cancer Foundation's website. Make a donation in any amount. If you donate $20 or more, James Frank, is it James Frank? No, not James Frank. Michael Frank, the Amazing James's brother, who's a fishing guide in South Carolina, will give you a pink fly that he tied himself.
Yeah, I saw those. They
so
look
you're
nice.
Guaranteed to get something if you donate $20. But if you donate anything, I don't care how much it is, I'm going to enter you into the raffles. So $10, you're in on it. It doesn't matter. So get that done. And here's the second half of my Lindsay Withers and Captain Sean interview. And if you listen close, it gets graphic. This is not for the faint of heart. Yeah.
The whole story. We'll start from the beginning. So I grew up fishing with my dad and my brother, freshwater fishing, southeastern Massachusetts, backwoods farm ponds, farting around for bass and sunfish, the whole nine. I really started venturing out to different species and stuff once I got a little bit older and I had my own wheels,
How young were you when you started?
Probably 3. We pretty old. I was wicked old when I was 3. I'll never forget my first big fish was pickerel. We were at a campground in Rhode Island, and I wouldn't touch it. Would not touch it. And for the picture of my dad standing behind me with the pickerel in front of me because I'm like...
A lot of pictures of little kids not holding their fish.
Yeah, no. It had teeth. I wanted nothing to do with it. And now you first day shark fishing, and I'm like, okay, let's go. Show me some teeth. But yeah, so I fell in love with fishing when I was really young. So it's always been a go-to for me. You've got bees.
Are you allergic?
No, but they freak me out.
Bugs.
Just bugs. I don't do bugs.
You'll burn the house down if there's a spider somewhere.
You're okay with the fish, but bugs make
Yeah,
you
no,
nuts.
I don't. No spiders. No. I almost crashed my car the other day. There's one on my windshield. I'm like, "Arr!"
All right, so you grew up fishing.
Yes. So grew up fishing. I've always loved it. Mostly just being outside. Just the piece of being outside was nice. I met Sean on the dock in Saco. And he had me at shark fishing. I was sold. Hook, line, and sinker. Done. So shortly after we started dating, I got diagnosed. I think it was 2 months.
Like during a tournament, right?
I found
We
it.
found out during a tournament.
And then I got my diagnosis during the tournament.
It'd be weird to find it during a tournament. I would wonder how much fishing you're doing.
Not a lot.
So the first tournament we did was the day after my biopsy. So my initial biopsy. I wasn't supposed to do anything, and I was furious. I'm like, you guys are ruining my weekend. I have fishing to do. I'm not going to be able to cast. This is ridiculous.
Cancer
But-
ruins everything.
Yeah.
It's so inconsiderate.
But luckily enough, a certain someone set the hammock up for me up in the tower, so I had a spot to hide and put ice on my boob. And I was comfortable. We had a really good weekend. And then right after the tournament, I got the phone call, and they said, it is what it is. And I said, fucking lovely. Just
That's the right reaction.
Yay.
Yeah.
go team. Yeah, so that was the start of it. But during the whole thing, like waiting for follow-ups and pre-ops and more testing and visiting this doctor and going to the radiation oncologist and the medical oncologist and the surgeon and then the plastic surgeon. It was a lot of doctors. But in between all those appointments, fishing was
we
more of
fished
a...
the Casco Bay Classic too.
Yeah, we did.
Right after you.
Fishing turned into more of a medication than anything.
Like a therapy.
Yeah, I just drowned myself in fishing. Like it was because it was the only point where I was so focused on something else that I didn't even think about what else was going on.
Now, incidentally, Sean, you're a shark guy, right?
Yep.
So, I'm probably wrong because I'm wrong a lot. But there's only, I think, 2 vertebrate animals that don't get cancer. And I think sharks are.
What's a
Interesting.
vertebrae? Is that edible?
Yeah, animals with
You
backbones,
lost
right?
him at science.
So,
Science.
have you heard that? The sharks don't get cancer?
That's
No.
interesting.
No? Because I'm just kind of thinking in my head. I'm like, all right, so you got cancer. So now you got to like take it out on the sharks. Like, you
I
bastards.
kind of did. So,
Yeah, she did.
so when we were getting ready to book my surgeries, like to schedule the dates and stuff, we had already bought into the Casco Bay Classic, which is a shark tournament. It's 3 days, and I was going with Sean and my friends from work, and I was ready for this tournament. I was so excited, and they wanted the surgery to be in the middle of the tournament, and I was like, oh no. No.
You reschedule.
No. Completely changed that date. So I made them push it back a week.
See, I've been more impressed if you said, all right, fine, come on the boat.
Yeah, use my Dexter knives to
Yeah.
just cut that thing out. No, so we did the tournament and caught my first shark. My first one was a 9-foot blue, which was absolutely surreal. I'm like, holy crap, this is a shark and it has teeth.
Yeah, they're not. The blue sharks are
Sean made me
huge,
touch
right?
it. But yeah, so we fished the tournament. I had my surgeries done at Brigham on August 28th, 2013, if you want to get specific. I had a full mastectomy on the left side and reconstruction. And then later on, I had another surgery to kind of balance things out. I'm happy with the results now.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah,
Good.
my plastic surgeon built a good set. He did a good job.
Excellent. I can't imagine. I can't imagine having to go through something like that. We've lost friends in the past year to cancer, other kinds of cancers, and I'm super glad.
Terrible beast.
And because you're so young, you wouldn't have gotten checked through regular screenings at any point until, 20 years from now.
I had no
almost.
idea.
So you would have not noticed it until maybe you were at stage 3 or 4, and it would have been too late to do a lot of the work that you got done. So
mine was pretty rapid moving. When they first caught it, they thought it was just a ductal carcinoma, which means that it's inside the duct system, so in the pipes, if you will. However,
I'll tell you one thing I know about cancer patients is their vocabulary is ginormous. That means make bigger. It means gets bigger.
Clay, just jump. I'll drop off all the stuff to your wife.
So it started out as what they thought would be a ductal carcinoma, and then after my mastectomy, they staged it between a 2 and a 3.
Mm-hmm.
So it had expanded out of my duct system and into the breast tissue. When they did my mastectomy and took the breast tissue out, they check the margins, right? So they're going to check the outside of the breast tissue. I know I'm holding my hands like I have a pumpkin in my hands, just in case you view it.
But I was not imagining a pumpkin.
No.
Yeah. Or maybe a boob. So if you look at it as like a ball, they check the edges to make sure that there's no cancer cells on the outside, and that was the way that they would know if it got into my chest wall or not. It was in my lymph nodes. It only got a couple of them, but they ended up pulling them all out from underneath my arm.
Mm-hmm.
I know this probably isn't radio okay, but
I can edit anything.
Refer to it like anal beads, like they just popped them out in a string.
Anal beads.
Yeah, now I know everything I need to know.
That's not going to get it.
Yeah.
Hopefully that doesn't make it.
Now I know why you guys are together.
But yeah, so I had a little bit of lymph node involvement, so they ended up checking all those, and but they did a good job with the surgery. Everything was clear.
Good. And prognosis now?
I'm on tamoxifen for 7 more years. They gave me a 10-year stint doing time. It's an estrogen blocker, which initially sucked.
Well, anything hormonal
is
so hard to deal with.
Brutal.
You okay?
Every once in a while it gets a little rough, but it's not terrible anymore, thank God. It kind of balanced out.
I don't have to do so many 5-day offshore trips anymore.
You're a dick.
But it suits you. So now that's mostly behind you.
Yeah.
It's going to be part of who you are for a long time.
Yep.
You're doing great stuff, raising awareness and money, part of all these great companies. What's your fishing career looking like? Is that a thing? Or do I just say, fishing career?
I guess it's a thing.
When you get paid to fish?
I don't get paid to fish.
So it's not a career. You have another career, your other
Yes,
life.
I'm a paramedic down in Worcester, Mass.
It's an interesting thing because a lot of people look at people who fish and do what you do or what I do, and they think that's our jobs. And,
I wish it was my job.
Yeah. It could be. You never know.
You pretty much have to be independently wealthy for that to be your quote-unquote job.
Yeah, I'm learning that.
Well, and it's a tough professional industry up here anyway because we don't have the tournament structure that they would have like down south.
Mm-hmm. Is that where the big money is for?
Well, from the charter side, from my business side, it's a 2-month season. You have 2 months. I get $250,000 in overhead. I have 2 months to pay all the bills and put a paycheck in my pocket. You stretch the season out a month and a half one way, a month and a half the other, but you basically have from the time the kids get out of school to the time the kids go back to school to make all your money. Your tournaments are all in August. Mm-hmm. You go down to the south and they fish year-round.
Right.
Their dead season is in Florida. Their dead season, I would assume, is probably like July and August because you can't go outside without dying.
Do you ever think about packing up and heading south in the winter and doing charter?
I would assume it won't be much longer. I know, something along those lines.
Because up here in the winter you've got truck.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And that's not just fly fishing. No.
Not even close.
Yeah, and I'm just hoping my fishing started this winter. And the advice everyone has given me is second one, do the same thing.
Well, if you need a paramedic on staff, I know you can.
It's really funny. Josh, have you been listening to the podcast the last few weeks?
Definitely.
All right. So every Thursday, I've been doing something different. I've been throwing up classic Fish Nerds episodes.
Throwbacks.
Throwback Thursdays, right? Dave and I have only ever kept 15 episodes at a time available on the internet. So if you were new to the show, you couldn't go back and back catalog and listen to all 125 episodes. So what I've been doing is every Thursday, since I took the show over, is I've been releasing an old episode. So now we're getting 2 episodes a week. Monday I'm releasing one, and Thursday's a classic throwback. We're on week 5 right now. And they're totally fun. They're very different shows. You can kind of see the show evolve over time. I think some of our best stuff came early, but we peaked at episode 6.
I loved hearing your, I guess it was episode 1 or 2, your recollection of your first experience with your boat and like putting the trailer in the water. That was really great stuff.
Yeah. And if everyone's subscribing to the podcast on iTunes, you will get these every single week, or Stitcher, or now we're on iHeartRadio. So now we're kind of
nice.
We're everywhere you get podcasts. So listen for those Throwback Thursdays. Let us know what you think about them, and compare them to our newer shows, and let us know how we can improve, or if we need to go back in time and do things like we used to. Let me know that too. So, but the show is going to be evolving over the next few months, and we're looking for fan input, especially if you know any musicians. We're trying to get all original music on the show. So if you know someone who wants some exposure, we don't have any money, so we can't pay you, but we're looking for new intro, outro music, and new stuff for like the Fish in the News and that sort of thing. And any kind of music that sets that mood will work for us. And we'll, of course, put you in the show notes, link on our website, and I'll mention you on every single show that we use the music on. So send that to clay@fishnerds.com if you want to play, and we'll mix you into the show.
Oh, yeah. I definitely have a few musician friends from back home that I'm hoping will be interested in it. I'm definitely going to send them your way.
Yeah, and it's the funny thing about this, Josh, is I get a lot of people saying, "Hey, Clay, you should come and write an article for me for exposure," or you should, I get a lot of writing requests, and they don't want to pay me, and I tell them, I could die from exposure. So I do feel bad that I can't pay musicians for their work yet, but I'm hoping to be selling advertising soon on the show, and when that starts happening and we have income, I do plan on paying people for their music. I think artists are super valuable, and if you can pay them, you should be paying them. And speaking of paying them, this show needs to be paid for, and if you're checking us out regularly, you should be on patreon.com/fishnerds and give us $1 an episode and keep us funded. I'm not going to say more about it today because we've done enough of that, but
just get out there and do it.
Help us keep the show going. It does cost money.
$1 an episode, no big deal.
$4 a month, you won't even notice it. It's better than Planet Fitness, and you'll be smarter, kind of.
One less Starbucks coffee a week. Boom.
Oh, you jerk. Don't make people do that. All right. Hey, so Josh, you are so lucky because you get to hang out with Peter Moyle.
Yes. I love hanging out with Dr. Moyle and his crew.
Yeah. Now, for those who don't know, why don't you tell us who Peter Moyle is?
So, Dr. Peter Moyle is a really famous fisheries biologist or fish biologist. I like to refer to him sort of as the godfather of California fishes. However, he's known pretty far and wide. I know Dave was pretty excited the first time I brought a piece about Dr. Moyle because he wrote the textbook that Dave used in college. So he's essentially just, he's one of the greats as far as biologists go. And fortunately for me, he's only about an hour and 15 minutes up the road.
So yeah, and a real icon in the pescatarian world.
Total icon.
Yeah, and by the way, I am fish stupid. All my fishy learning has been done in the field and one fish at a time. I didn't go to college to study fishes or anything like that, and I had never heard of Peter Moyle. But I get excited about people like this because smarter people than me get excited about it, and I always want to hang out with smart people. So,
well, I like to tell people that when they don't know about Peter Moyle, and they go, so you're hanging out with this guy, Dr. Moyle, like friends of mine that aren't really in my field but want to know what I do. And I said, well, let me put it to you this way: Dr. Peter Moyle works at the Moyle Lab. So he's a big deal.
Yeah, he is a super big deal, and you got to work with him.
Yes.
So tell us about this.
So this is a little different than the last piece, the F and West piece that James and I submitted, where they go out on monthly surveys to some of our local delta and marsh waterways and do fish surveys. That last piece was me riding along with those guys, and I do that here and there when I want to go collect certain fish with them. But this one's a little different. This is actually an annual field trip that they do for their fish biology class. So this is our chance to get college kids, some of their first experience out in the field, learning how to sample, how to operate, electrofishing boats, seine nets, looking at the basic biology of a fish in the field versus looking at pictures. So this was kind of a unique opportunity where I get to be sort of at ground zero of everybody coming in from the sampling and bringing fish back to the table, so I can sort of pick and choose what I want for my aquarium collection. But over the last few years, it's really turned into a thing where I'm sort of one of the crew members in the fish workup station, because I bring all the aquariums for the fish to be held in throughout the day. So it's one of those things where I'm just in awe that I'm working with Dr. Moyle and his fantastic crew. Yet he's the one that's coming up to me going, "Hey, thanks so much for bringing the truck with the fish tanks on it, and it's so helpful." And I'm just like, no. Trust me, it's no big deal. It's an honor for me to be out here. But essentially, we got to collect fish all day out of Pewta Creek, which is a creek that runs along UC Davis, the school where the Peter Moyle Lab is, and it was a fantastic day.
What now? So for those of us who don't live in California, is that a saltwater creek, freshwater creek? What's the water like?
This is a freshwater creek. It's just a little west of Sacramento. So this is further inland from the San Francisco Bay Area, where James and I reside, where you find a lot more saltwater. This is a little further up the way, still into the freshwater reach.
So, and I'm really interested to see what kind of fish you're sampling. What have you been catching?
So there's quite a mix of fish there. I want to say that over the years, they've really worked with adjusting flows in the creek at optimal native spawning time, so that they've seen a really big jump in native versus non-native over the years. But the main things we got were Sacramento suckers, which are a local native sucker, just like the hognose and red horse back east. Sacramento pike minnow was another great one we found, which is even though it's a minnow, prior to largemouth bass and other predator fish being introduced, this was sort of the big bully on the block before we brought over all our other eastern fish.
Well, it's interesting. A lot of people hear minnow and they just assume it means tiny bait fish, right? And
yeah,
and it's not always the case with minnows. Minnows is not a size measurement. It's not a measurement of fish. It's
not at all. It's such a large group of fish, and even things like carp are minnows. Yep. And it's California. The area doesn't have a ton of native diversity versus, say, like Tennessee or Kentucky or Missouri, but they have a really unique makeup of native fish here, in that a lot of them are minnows, and they've all sort of evolved to hold these different aspects of the food web, where you have the pike minnow who evolved to be the predator on other minnows. Yet you have the California roach, which has evolved to be the small stream minnow, and then you have Sacramento blackfish, which are actually filter feeders, but they all look very, very similar to the point that some people have a hard time telling some of them apart. So it's always interesting to not only see the Davis crew work these fish up and point out all the differences to the kids, but nowadays, I mean, there were points where I was leading a group of kids and pointing out all the different fish identification keys, which was a really great experience for me.
Let me stop you for a second.
Let's see.
Let me stop you for a second. I was listening to you very carefully here, and I think I figured out how you can tell the native fish from the non-natives just by what you were saying.
Did you hear those context clues, Clay?
Apparently, all the native fish in Sacramento are called the Sacramento whatever. Sacramento blackfish, Sacramento
It's either
minnow.
It's either Sacramento or California. Yeah,
Very,
exactly.
very clever. I mean, we would have been really smart to do that. We'd have had our 12 native fishes all named.
Yeah,
easily.
exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But we did also have a lot of fish that are more familiar to the listeners back east. A lot of largemouth bass, smallmouth, your standard run of like bluegill, red ear sunfish, green sunfish, log perch, which are really cool looking little darter species. It was a fun time. I look forward to that trip every year, not only because I get to grab a lot of fish for the aquarium, but also because I feel like they've sort of let me into the fold there at Davis, even though I didn't go there, I don't work there, but they've really accepted me as sort of an honorary crew member. So it's always fun when I can go hang out with Dr. Morrill and the crew.
That's really cool. And because you show up and you actually work, you're not just taking space up. You're valuable.
Exactly.
And I think whenever you're doing anything, showing up is one thing. But showing up and working and being part of stuff and getting involved,
Yeah.
and getting dirty, it makes you appreciate it more. So, show up and do something. Don't just
Exactly.
watch. That's really cool. Now, when you say kids, you're talking about college kids.
Yeah, these are college kids.
Yeah, and that's really cool. And I've done some few things where I've been invited to college classes to talk about fish, and it's really funny for me because I didn't go to college to study fish. I studied psychology. But because I do this fish nerds thing, people, they assume I'm expert at stuff, and and if you fake it, people really believe you. Now, are you faking it, or you truly know stuff?
I feel like I'm pretty much past the point of faking it these days.
Yeah,
I think so.
You've got it.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Well, cool. And so, are you going to follow up with Peter Moyle again, or is that just a once a year?
We actually, this Saturday, the second half of that class is a field trip to Bodega Bay, which is
That's where you buy small, like, grocery items and...
No, but it is a great location for local Dungeness crab, but it is not the same crabs. Bodega. So yeah, this is going to be this is the second half of the field trip where the class is going to be learning the saltwater side of things.
Oh, that's fun.
And I believe, aside from just having the aquarium set up, my wife Lauren and I will be doing the cast netting. So we're going to show everybody how to throw cast nets.
It's harder than you think.
Exactly.
Yep, I remember the first time I did it. It looked so easy, and then it was not. No, how big is the cast net you threw? Oh, we lost you. Okay, Fish Guy Josh. Can you hear me?
Hey.
Hey.
I can hear you.
Good. All right. So, have you heard of NaNoWriMo? NaNoWriMo? NaNoWriMo?
I have not.
No, I've heard of it. I've been following it for a few years. In fact, 2011, Dave and I won a book pitching contest where we actually won a New York City agent to sell our book that we were writing together.
Ah.
And I believe the people who put that book pitching contest together created a month called NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writers Month. And the idea, yeah, by the way, we never got published. We'll tell that story another time. But the idea of NaNoWriMo, which is a dumb name, but is...
Yeah, rolls right off the tongue.
It's the dumbest thing, right? I'm not a big fan of initialisms anyway. Like, I can deal with things that make words. What do you call it? What do you call it? Like scuba? Acronyms?
Well, now you've jinxed me. Yeah, acronyms.
Acronyms. I can deal with some acronyms because they actually spell a word. But initialisms, NaNoWriMo is not an acronym. It's an initialism. Initialisms don't say words. It's a string of letters that don't make sense. Right.
Just like a noise.
It's a noise. NaNoWriMo. But anyway, November is National Novel Writers Month, and thousands of people around the country are going to try and write a novel in 30 days. And I thought, I've been trying to put a Fish Nerds book out for years, and I thought, let's get together with our 12 listeners, and let's write a book together. Let's crowdsource a book. So what I'm thinking is, anyone listening to the show or following us on Facebook or Twitter or wherever you happen to be, if everyone could write 300 to 2,000 words, whatever they want to write, and tell us a story, email it to clay@fishnerds.com. I will, and with some photos even, and I can compile those together. And by the end of the month, we have our first Fish Nerds book that's crowdsourced. So
just like that.
Just like that. I'll do the editing and make it look good and lay it out, and I'll pay for all the work it takes to get it done. But everyone will get one. And it'll be totally
so
cool.
Essentially, we're looking for a collection of short stories of fish nerd adventures, eh?
Yeah, Fish Nerds adventures, and I like to I'm a big fan of themes. So I'm looking for adventure fishing. So I'll tell you the story I'm gonna write. I'll give you the
all right.
I'll give you the shortest version.
A little taste of what you'd like to hear.
Yeah, and this is actually a very, very true story. And it's, by the way, this story happened to me probably 15 years ago when I was a science teacher, and it may have evolved over time. But I used to work at a fish ladder in Manchester, New Hampshire, the Amoskeag Fishways.
Yes.
And I think I've told this story on the show before, but I'm going to tell it again briefly. And I had keys to get into the river below the turbines and stuff. And the way the dam was set up, there was a 700-foot dam across the Merrimack River, an island, and then on the other side of the island was where the turbines were. And that's where the fish ladder was. And so I had the gate keys below the fish ladder, and I would frequently fish down there. So my friend Tattoo Dan, who happened to be a tattoo artist, we used to go fishing below the dam together. We'd canoe across the river from that spot, and we'd tie the canoe off on the island, and then rock hop below the dam and fish the pools. Now, those pools below the dam always had largemouth bass, smallmouth bass, salmon, trout hiding in the pools because the river would drain out and the fish would hang out there. And it was a great place to fish, really cool. So one spring day, Dan and I were fishing. Actually, it was in the evening. We were fishing there, and the dam has what's called flashboards. Have you heard of flashboards?
Oh yeah, we have smaller dams just up the stream from my house, and they just pulled the flashboards for the winter.
That's right. And flashboard's job is to raise the lake water. It's a river, but they call it lake water, but the pooling area behind the dam higher. These were 4-foot tall flashboards, and they're designed to fail, which means fall down at some point. And it's 700 feet across the whole face of the dam, so it's a pretty big dam. And
it's a big flashboard.
Very big fly. They're just big pieces. They're plywood. They're just sheets of plywood. 4x8 sheets of plywood all across the whole dam. So Dan and I are fishing down there, and it's beautiful and sunny. But we don't know up north, 10, 15 miles. There's a huge thunderstorm, and tons of water coming down the river. And we're in a weird spot where we're fishing and we're catching tons of fish and having a great time, and we hear that horrible sound that you never want to hear below a dam. Wah, 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 wah.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. we start packing our gear up, but you're supposed to have 3 to 5 minutes to get out of the area when you hear those. We had about 30 seconds, so we managed to pack our gear, pack our pockets, and the flashboard started falling off the dam. And we're in the dead center, so it's 350 feet in either direction to get to shore. And our boat is actually in the center of everything, kind of tied to a small island. Not the same island we came across on, but like in the middle. And so we want to get to the canoe so we can get across the river and get out of the water. And so the water's coming up very fast all around us. Flashboards are kind of rushing past us. And so we grab our fishing rods, and we put them on our teeth, and we jump in the river feet first, and we butt bound. So, by the way, if you ever go in the rivers, in rapids, you should never, but if you do, always go feet first.
Feet first.
Feet first, and just bounce on your butt. And we did that all the way down to our canoe. And we got to the canoe. Now there's rapids on either side of us where it was calm when we first got in the river. And we managed to get into the boat, untie from the tree we were tied to, and canoe back across to where my car was parked. And we're soaked and whatever. And we start driving up the hill to the top of the dam, and we see sirens coming across the bridge. And on our property, on top of the dam, there's like firemen with binoculars. We look down the river, and there's a Zodiac coming up the river. And across the other side of the river, there's ambulances, and there's a helicopter flying around. So we drive up the hill to the top, and there's a cop standing up there. And I get out of the car, and I say, hey, I'm Clay Groves. I work here, and what's going on? And he goes, well, we got a phone call. Someone who lives in an apartment building up there said a couple of guys were in the river fishing, and the dam started flooding them out. And they jumped in the river, and they didn't see what happened to them, so we're looking for those guys. I said, man, that's so crazy. I was just down there fishing with my friend, and we didn't see anybody. and then we drove away. So that's the short version of that story. Yeah. Yeah.
That sounds like the water came up so fast.
It doesn't take long when those flashboards give. Yeah. I mean, that's a ton of water. But we could have done it. Now I was probably 26 then, and 43 now. So
could have died. We didn't. The end.
Yeah, there's a lot of fishing stories that start with I could have died today. But take your fishing stories, write them down, send them my way. I will beautify them for you. I'll edit them and change some stuff around, and you could be part of this crowdsourced book. And it could be a lot of fun. It may be a annual thing, or maybe we'll do a fishing book on techniques next time, or something completely different. Anyone who submits a story will get a package of Fish Nerds decals. So you can be part of the Fish Nerd Nation, and of course you'll get recognition in the book, and you'll get a free copy of the ebook when it comes out. So that's the game. So Clay at fishnerds.com, or find us on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or wherever you get your Fish Nerds news, and join us for NaNoWriMo.
We're just smooth like butter rolling off the tongue.
And you can find information on this at nanowrimo.org. Hashtag NaNoWriMo. By the way, go ahead.
Just email Clay.
Email me. I'll link you up. And you can find more information at fishnerds.com. By the way, hashtag. My daughter and I had a hashtag talk today. Because she never knew hashtag had other names.
The hashtag talk.
So quick talk for you, Josh, you being a little younger than me. What other things have hashtags been called over the years?
Are you referring to the actual symbol that they put in front?
Yep.
Gosh, it was called... I always just called it the number.
The number sign for sure.
Like the number sign.
Yeah, we called it that. We call it the pound sign.
Pound sign, yeah, that's the other one.
Yeah, my daughter said, how about tic-tac-toe sign? So I would credit her for that one. And then my very most favorite was the original name. When it was first designed, it actually has a name. Do you know what it was?
No.
It was Octothorpe.
I always thought it was like pound sign.
Nope.
What is it?
Octothorpe.
Octothorpe, huh?
Yeah, isn't that cool? So you can always hashtag Octothorpe pound sign. There's a whole list of them you can do there. All right, fish in the news.
Fish in the news.
Fish in the news. All right, and I'm gonna do a couple here. Just gonna do two today. And the first one, this is actually comes from a viral video, and I'm gonna bring it back to the HuffPost story. Great white shark gets stuck in a cage with divers. Have you seen this video?
Yes, I was looking at this video earlier today.
Yeah, it's insane. So imagine you're in a shark cage. Have you been in a shark cage? You're a diver.
I am a diver. I have been in open ocean aquaculture cages, so it's sort of like a gigantic fish pen, so not necessarily a shark cage, but I have been in the pen with sharks around me on the outside.
It's a little spooky, I can imagine. Now imagine a great white shark ends up in the cage with you. This is what happened. This was in Mexico. And so the shark cage, what happened is the shark came by and swam by and bit through the oxygen line. And while they were trying to fix that, they opened up the cage a little bit and the shark went into the cage with the diver. And then eventually the shark escaped and swam away. But the reason I bring this up is this went viral. It was huge. It's all over the internet. It'll be at fishnerds.com. But it's important to know that the people who were doing this video were actually breaking the law. And I think that's important. And I'm not sure if the Huffington Post piece I'm linking here actually says that. But at this particular place, it's a protected area for great white sharks. It's part of a place where they look out for them. And in that area, it's illegal to chum to sharks in because there's so many sharks there already.
Yeah.
And you don't need to chum for them. But this company was clearly chumming the sharks up. They had like a big hunk of fish on a rope, and they were dragging it in front of the shark.
I mean, you could tell they were just in the video by like how many small bait fish were in the area.
Yeah, the only way that would happen is if there's chum everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how I feel about chumming the fish in. Part of me gets it, and if the money they earn goes to research and that sort of thing, I kind of get that. But someone could have died because they were breaking this law. I mean, that would have been really, really frightening. But. Yeah,
it's chumming's. It's always interesting. It's even among just fishing. It's all about, I guess, what your end goal is and what sort of rules are put in place to control it. I mean, I've seen some of those spots in the Caribbean where they put the chum sickles to attract the sharks. I've been on dive boats before where the local guy, throws in pieces of fishing bait over the side to get the nurse sharks to come in, and it's, you really have to be careful and know your surroundings and what the habits of other guides and fishermen are before you just start doing stuff like that.
Yeah, you really do. And by the way, I chum when I fish. I have no problem with the act of it. I just have a problem with okay, you're in a protected area. Maybe in that area where you're told not to do it, you should. Maybe you don't do it.
Exactly.
I mean, when I fish, if chumming's going to bring fish in, I'm going to do it. Especially if it's not like putting pollution in the water and crazy things. We used to, as a kid, we would spray our bait with WD-40. That's probably not great. But,
I remember that old trick. Yeah.
Very popular out in the Pacific Northwest. But anyway, so they were doing it, and by the way, the people who were in the story. Says that I'm aware this video received many angry comments about shark cage dives and chumming. Many of you think baiting is wrong and it isn't fair to the sharks. But guess what? I agree with you. In her Blue Water Travel Report, Yonkers says she understands the issues with chumming, but believes the benefits of observing and increasing understanding of sharks outweighs the negative impacts. That's fancy talk for, man, that's awesome. That's all she's saying there. It's really cool. But in that area, you're not supposed to do it. So they could have saved herself some trouble there. But they got a viral video, and that's... That's something.
You can really see in that video just it looks like there's divers in the lower part of the cage, probably scared out of their mind, obviously. But man, can you see that really brave soul
he's pushing the shark out.
Up there trying to get it out? Man, that guy's got some cojones on him.
He does. But, that shark didn't want to be in the cage. He wasn't in she wanted out. I mean, she just... but they could have hurt the shark.
Totally.
It's an endangered species, so it's important. And I'm a big fan of sharks, but I don't know. I have such mixed feelings about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because at
hear
the
you.
same time, if I was there and they were doing it, I'd been like, wow, this is awesome. You know, I would have been with them. I'd have been guilty. All right. And other fish in the news. This is from New York Times. Big time news, man. If the New York
Big
Times
time.
is reporting on fish, it's something. I'm just trying to pull it up right now. All right. In the wild, goldfish turn from pet to pest. And this is actually, this story comes around every so often, but this happens in Australia. 2 decades ago, someone dropped a handful of unwanted pet goldfish into a creek in southwestern Australia. Those goldfish grew, swam downstream, mucked up the waters wherever they went, and spawned like mad. Before long, they took over the whole river. So this is a classic story. Do you have goldfish in the wild in California?
Yeah, we deal with them all the time in several of our East Bay Park District waters. We have a lot of goldfish hotspots.
And have you angled for them?
I not specifically. I've yet to hook one. There is a few areas near where I go carp fishing that I know are synonymous with goldfish as well. So I want to specifically go to those areas and maybe try and grab some.
Yeah, it's.
Most feral goldfish are everywhere.
Yeah, I've got one on a hook and line when we were on the quest in New Hampshire to catch all the fish. It was not a very big one. Of course, and we ate it. But it's very, very common for fish owners to like let fish go into the wild. If you look at Florida, they've wrecked their fisheries their freshwater fisheries with aquarium fish. So I'm not going to read you the whole article. But so let's pretend, Josh, you've got a goldfish. And you've decided, you know what? I've had this goldfish for long enough. He's an old fish. I'm going to release him in the wild and release him, or I don't want him anymore. What do you do with him?
You know, it's so not realizing this was the scenario you were going to give me. This is what the amazing James and I do at schools when we take the mobile fish exhibit out. This is one of the exact scenarios that James presents to the kids.
Perfect.
Where myself, one of the other naturalists, pretend to buy a goldfish or win a goldfish at the fair, and we pick one of the kids from the audience up. And we initially make the wrong decision and go, hey, I'm going to throw it in the water. And we have the two kids shake hands, and they become, quote, goldfish married, and we call up a bunch of other kids to be the babies. And the other volunteer that was the single little Sacramento perch native fish suddenly gets pushed out because there's no more space up front by the tank. So it's funny you say that. This is the exact thing we do every week. So we tend to lean more toward encouraging the kids to either get a bigger tank, return it to the pet store, sometimes for credit, or see if maybe you can give it to a friend. If you're a little cold-hearted about it and know how many goldfish there are in the world, like myself, I probably wouldn't be really against throwing it on ice and maybe using it for cut bait later. To catch some catfish.
We used to feed them to our snakes. We would feed them to our garter snakes.
Yeah, that's what I do with feeder goldfish right now. I have a garter snake at the lab. We feed the goldfish.
Oh, that's great. By the way, have you ever given goldfish to a northern water snake?
No.
Oh, we used to keep one of those in a tank, and we would drop. and they're in the garter snake family. They're great snakes. They're one of those snakes that the first time you pick them up will bite you and make you bleed everywhere, and they'll stink on you and poop on you. And then the third time you pick them up, they stop biting and they just become very docile and easy to handle. They're terrific. But they're so fun in an aquarium. And if you put in a dozen feeder goldfish, one 18-inch snake would eat a dozen in 15 seconds. It just blop, blop. I'm exaggerating, but it's so fast how fast they eat goldfish. It's so cool. So the New York Times has a recommendation on how to get rid of your fish. So if your fish is sick, so they're not even saying if you want to get rid of it. They're saying, okay, say they're not even going to go to just kill it for fun. But if it's sick, they say don't let it go. You want to kill it humanely. So they put it in an ice slurry, just like you recommended.
Yeah.
And they answer the question, should you flush it down the toilet? What do you think?
Well, I assume it probably isn't recommended, but if it is alive when it goes down there, if it's going to hit the sewer, I don't feel like it has much of a chance to survive.
Yeah, now I agree with you on that. And they say don't flush it down the toilet. As for whether you should flush your fish down the toilet, experts recommend against it. There's a slight chance your fish could survive the journey through the septic system. There's not, by the way. It's just, that's not. There's. I mean, maybe in like the 70s where your toilet's flushed into the river and there's nothing between you and the river or whatever. But like with modern sewage, I think that's impossible.
Yeah, I think that goldfish has a better chance of winning the lottery first.
Yeah. And by the way, to go into a septic system, that's not a chance because that's not open to this. That's that means we have to go through a leach field somehow and end up. That's impossible. But in general, it's not a very pleasant way to say goodbye to bubbles. I think that's a good ending to it. That's a terrible way to go. The ice slurry, though, that won't kill the fish.
Won't?
No, I don't think it will. Not a goldfish.
I mean, maybe eventually.
Maybe. My friend Ray in high school he lived in a shed in his backyard, and his shed was only heated, when he was sleeping at night. And he had a 10-gallon aquarium with a goldfish in there named Basil. And we called that fish Basil the Wonder Fish. And the reason we called it that is because, first of all, there was no aerator in that tank. So, it was a 10-gallon tank. Ray would throw all his pocket change in the tank every day. So the only bedding in the tank was nickels, dimes, quarters, pennies.
So the gravel was loose change.
Gravel was loose change. When the tank evaporated down to about 3 inches of water, Ray would get the garden hose and stick it in the tank and fill it back up again. And every so often, the tank would freeze solid because Ray wasn't home for 2 or 3 days at a time. And it would thaw out, and the fish was fine. So that was Basil the Wonder Fish, and so
that is one hardcore goldfish.
Goldfish are hardcore. I mean, anything in most of the minnow family is like that.
Yeah.
They're survivors. They can deal with that low oxygen water and murky stuff and a bunch of pocket change.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's.
I mean, I know down south. I think one of the biggest ways the goldfish get out is, you can buy live goldfish in bait shops, and I think people just dump them. They dump them over the boat at the end of the day.
Oh, I'm sure of it. I mean, I don't know about your state, but New Hampshire, if you're using any kind of bait, live bait at all, letting the bait go is illegal.
Yeah, I think it pretty much is the standard everywhere. It's just not necessarily followed. Out here, we actually have very strict rules in using live bait, much less dumping it. So there's really only a couple places in the state where you can even do that.
Yeah, it's just not a thing. And New Hampshire, I always feel terrible too. We go ice fishing and we got like 10 minnows left over, and you just kind of want to dump them down the hole, but you can't. So you dump them right in the ice, and that's it. But luckily, there's lots of little quick animals that come eat them, so it's not completely wasted.
Yeah, or you do like me. I put them in Ziplocs. Afterwards and freeze them, and then I just use that as cut bait later.
Cut bait or chum or whatever, get your sharks.
Yeah.
So good.
Exactly.
That's it. All right. So don't let bubbles go. That's it. Bubbles. Don't let Basil go. All right. So let's wrap this up. So that's it. You've listened to a few fish nerds when you should have been fishing.
We'd like to thank our families for supporting us while we podcast, go on fishing quests, and do all sorts of silly things that nerds do. If you'd like to help us crowdfund this podcast, go to patreon.com and give us $1.
Yeah. Special thanks to Lindsay Withers and Captain Sean Tibbetts from MaineTunaFishing.com. And, of course, big thank you to Fish Guy Josh for taking the co-hosting reins tonight. You can find Fish Guy Josh everywhere you find social media at Fish Guy Josh, and especially check out his YouTube channel. It's awesome, and we'll link that up at fishnerds.com.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, until next time, follow the code of the Fish Nerds, spawn early and often,
avoid free lunches with strings attached,
and swim against the current every chance you get.